tonight rather than tomorrow morning. And I'll speak a little bit about the significance of our coming together for hearing and chanting about Krishna. Many of you are just finishing your wonderful book distribution marathon, distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. And we can feel the energy that you built up through that wonderful sacrifice. We can feel the energy shaking the walls. We're so grateful for that energy, which comes through Parampara, coming all the way from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So let me first introduce our special guest, and as I said, I'll speak a little bit about the significance of this gathering so we can set the course, and we shall proceed. I wonder if the management team wants to make any announcements tonight, or you still want to hold out until tomorrow morning? Oh, is there a special reason? If I may dare ask. A few more. Looks like a lot here now, but you're the boss. So this is Archita Prabhu. Who has flown here all the way from Los Angeles, and then he'll go to Australia, to the West Island, we call it. And I have known Archita Prabhu, and he's a disciple, of course, of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. I've known him since 1973, when I was on book distribution in New York City, and lamenting how I could never seem to distribute a lot of literature. But there I was on the streets in New York City. And what month was that?
It was spring.
Springtime.
I don't remember the exact date. Yeah.
Yes, that meant I was just a brand new bhakta. And so, what happened then?
Well, I saw this person sitting at a book table, dressed like these brahmacharis, bright saffron cloth. And my first thought, I'm walking down the street in New York, never seen anything like that. So I'm thinking, this guy's pretty brave to walk around New York dressed like this.
Yes.
You want me to tell more? Hare Krishna. So I just finished I know not many of you here have already graduated uni, but I had just finished my third year of civil engineering. You know, walking around thinking that I'm an intelligent person and connected and all of that. My friends used to call me the cruise director because I was the one who always arranged all the parties and the good stuff, and you know. So I was pretty puffed up, thinking that everything was cool, everything was fine. So I got.
He's from New York, so I have to tell him stuff. I can't catch it, so.
You're losing your New York cred.
Yes. I've been
right,
Kiwi-ized.
I'll try my best to bring it down. So, I approached the table. He didn't approach me. I approached him. What is this all about? You know, why are you dressed like that? What is this all about? And to make a long story short, I got just one little pamphlet, Krishna, the Reservoir of Pleasure. Do you still have that in publication here in New Zealand? You have that? Just a little pamphlet, Krishna, the Reservoir of Pleasure. It's actually from a lecture Prabhupada gave on the nectar of devotion. The content was extracted from Prabhupada's.
Did you pay for it?
Yes.
Do you remember how much?
I don't think you would have let me have it if I hadn't paid. But to be quite honest, based on my lifestyle at the time, I was more interested in the incense You can figure out why. I was living in dormitory, so, and things that are legal today were not legal then. Anyway, I got this one pamphlet, and besides talking too fast, I had a bad habit of being late for everything. A date, my classes, everything. I just had a chronic case of being late, which was not from my mother. They say the son takes after the mother. My mother was just the opposite. If she had to go somewhere, she had to be there an hour early, minimum. So I don't know where, anyway, I was just always late for everything. So I put this pamphlet, I didn't read it right away, put it in my, like I said, I was more interested in the incense. So I got some incense, I got the pamphlet, put the pamphlet in my backpack. As a student, I always had a backpack. And one night, lo and behold, I went to a movie about a month later, and I was uncharacteristically early. So what to do? I gotta wait, like half an hour before this movie starts. So I rummaged through my bag. I didn't want to take out the school books, so I found this pamphlet. Took it out and I started reading. And from the very first sentence, if you have that, and if you don't, you can look it up. It's been burned into my brain. This is what attracted me first, the philosophy. I know nothing about chanting or prasadam or any of that. Just this one pamphlet. Prabhupada said, Krishna, that name is transcendental. Krishna means the highest pleasure. Every one of us is looking for pleasure, but we don't know where to look. So, as a pleasure seeker, Prabhupada hit me in the gut right away. So after reading that pamphlet, I immediately sought out the New York Temple, which at that time was the famous Henry Street Temple. That was the third temple in New York. First it was 26 Second Avenue, then it was 62 Second Avenue, and then Henry Street was the third temple. It had been a Catholic convent, two brownstones together, in an Italian/Puerto Rican section of the city. They hated our guts, our neighbors, the Italians and the Puerto Ricans. We were just too strange. New York is a strange city full of strange people, but the Hare Krishnas were just too strange. They couldn't fathom us, where we were coming from, where we were going. They actually attacked the temple once. I wasn't there yet when that happened. Were you there yet at that time?
Yes.
Yeah, they attacked the temple, literally, just to get rid of us. Didn't work. So I started going, and at that time, devotees like Maharaj and Dravida and so many wonderful devotees that you read about in the Lilamrita, they were very, very, very merciful. If you came more than 2 or 3 times and you had a rudimentary understanding of the philosophy, they asked you, what are you waiting for? Move in. So I took that to heart, and by the fall of that year, I was a full-fledged Hare Krishna devotee. Now, just a little story. I thought this is what I wanted to do with my life. So I didn't intend to go back for my last year of civil engineering, boring stuff. That was it for me, just become a Hare Krishna. But the temple president one day came to me and said, not your destination, my name was Bhakta Orville. Bhakta Orville, I think you should go back to school for your final year. So I'm scratching my head, why? They're asking everybody to join. Why are you practically throwing me out to go back to school? Couldn't figure it out. So after much discussion, I agreed. So I went back to school in my last year, for the last year of engineering. And later on, I found out why he asked me to go back to school. One day when I was not in the temple, my older sister came. I'm a middle child, older sister, younger sister. So the older sister came, 3.5 years older, with a couple of her friends who were college graduates. They had just graduated, but they had been football players in college. Not Australian rules football, American football. So these guys are huge. They were like, 6'4", 6'5", muscular, big afros. So the temple president got scared. He thought, this guy's family is going to attack the temple. So that's why he convinced me to go back to school. His arguments were a little lame. He said, Prabhupada is going to be building temples, you can use your engineering skills, etc. But that was the real reason. He was afraid of my family members. And those guys were actually pussycats. They looked mean, but they were just like, they wouldn't attack anybody. So that was that. And something I just discovered about Maharaj that maybe he doesn't know that I know, but one day I got One day I got tapped by Jayadvaita Das Brahmachari. He was not yet sannyasi. He asked me, would you like to join the book production team? Of course. Because up till then, my service was, here I am, somewhat educated college student. My main service was cleaning the stool rooms in the Brahmachari ashram. That was a heavy service. But I realized that Krishna's forcing me to surrender. You do what you're asked to do. So every day I had to get up and clean the stool rooms, then help out in the kitchen, then go out on Harinam, like that. The whole day was structured. So one day I'm doing my routine, and Jayadvaita Das Brahmachari comes and taps me and said, would you like to join the book production team? So I said, sure. And the reason why they asked me, because I was one of the few people at that time who knew how to program computers. Computers back then, 1973, 74, meant mainframe computers. Huge room full of equipment. And you had to punch cards and, like that. It was a whole different era. So they were getting ready to computerize the book production. And we bought eventually a mini computer, which is the size of a refrigerator. No personal computers yet, not even, calculators had just come in, hand calculators, it's just been, anyway, so that's how I got involved. And a little distance from the temple on Tiffany Place, we had the book production and printing. We actually had our own printing press at the time. So then Prabhupada created, that was called ISKCON Press, and also ISKCON Books was the imprint on which we produced Prabhupada's books. So then Prabhupada started in 72, BBT. And they set up a whole building in Los Angeles for that. And they asked all of us who were in the press, ISKCON Press, ISKCON Books, to leave New York and come to Los Angeles. And I could never figure out why Maharaj was part of that, because he was not really part of the book production team in New York. He was, like you said, a book distributor. But recently, our godbrother Dravida told me, he said, Maharaj came to me and asked me to ask the manager, Radhaballabha, could he become a proofreader and join the book production team? And so that's how he got out of New York and came to Los Angeles with us.
Involuntarily, because I was in love with book distribution after 2 years of doing nothing. Suddenly, Lord Chaitanya turned the switch on and books were flying out of my hands, and I thought, this is the way the rest of my life is going to be. After doing this book distribution service for 2 years and no results, I had, as I often explain, two conflicting emotions. Because I started my book distribution, full-time Sankirtan, which back then meant 7 days a week, including all night Friday night and Saturday night. So I hated it. But at the same time, I was determined to love it because I knew Srila Prabhupada wanted this service. So I had these two conflicting emotions all at the same time. So for 2 years, I went out every day and practically did nothing, although I met so many persons who later turned out to become full-time devotees, like His Grace Archita Prabhu. But I was, being a neophyte, I was just thinking, oh, others are doing more books than me. Their scores are always so big and mine are always so small. And so after 2 years of doing nothing, suddenly Mahaprabhu turns on the switch from one moment to the next. Like, enough of your nonsense. Now I'm going to show you what the real action is. So that I floated in ecstasy for 2 or 3 months like that. And then the health suddenly started to leave. Because back then we would go out in the freezing cold of New York with just wafer-thin plastic shoes. We didn't know that Prabhupada had instructed devotees in Germany that because of the climate they could wear leather boots. We didn't know that. We were staunch. Yes. So it's not that the non-leather shoes are like what you have today. They were just the thinnest plastic material, and there we are standing on pavement, sidewalk, you call them footpaths here. But the footpaths are made of concrete, not earth. And so we're standing on that all day, and the cold is shooting up through your feet, up your legs. And also we would distribute literature in the subways, which were very damp and cold. And so finally it started getting to me. And devotees were telling me, you have to change your service. Your health can't handle this anymore. I said, no, I will never stop distributing books. I was serious. I had tried so hard for 2 years, and now it's all happening. And now I'm supposed to give it up? No way. This is the best service. This is the only service. So I went on like that for a couple of months. And finally it got to the point where I would be laying on the floor in the Brahmacharya ashram, coughing all day, get up, go out for 2 hours of book distribution, come back and lay on the floor and cough the rest of the day away. But I thought, still I will not give up. And devotees kept telling me, you're going to have to change your service. All services are equal. No, book distribution is the only solution. So finally, I was at this huge bus terminal in New York, Port Authority, and someone passed in front of me a distance of, like half as much a distance as Vrindavan Madhuri is away from me now. Like right there, they walked there. And I was so weak, I had to pray to Krishna, please let me cross this distance and present the person with the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so I got up enough energy to walk 2 steps and put the book, the Bhagavatam, in the person's hand. The person took the book. And I knew that's it for me. If I have to pray to Krishna to make 2 steps. So then I talked to Dravida and I confessed that during my academic studies, I had part-time jobs as a student, and one of them was as a copy editor for Yale Press. So when they heard that, it was at the same time that Prabhupada was starting to shake the earth. Where are my books? Where are my books? So I said that in April of 1975, and 3 weeks later, in May of 75, I was on the plane. Were you on that same plane too, or you had already gone ahead?
We were already gone, yeah.
So those were the days. And so many of you are reaping the efforts of what we young ones did in those days, and we're happy for you to relish the fruits of those efforts. So Archita Prabhu will be giving class tomorrow. I believe he'll start with the Chaitanya Charitamrita verse from Anchalila about chanting Hare Krishna. I'd like, before we launch into more kirtan, and maybe Archita Prabhu has something more to say, I'd like to speak a little bit about why we have this Recharge Festival. Of course, you all have already started jumping and chanting and dancing, and you are demonstrating the meaning of this festival. But to further deepen your understanding, I jotted down a few points that I have been discussing with senior Vaishnavas over the past few days. Some of you are wondering, all right, we have kirtan, but we also have japa. Which is more important? And maybe we should just have kirtan, or maybe we should just do japa. So let's discuss that. Because in one of Jiva Goswami's works, and as you know, Jiva Goswami, or as you may know, he's the chief philosopher for the followers of Mahaprabhu. So he says that actually, looked at in one way, kirtan is more potent than japa. So you might say, well then, if that's the case, we should just not do japa and just do kirtan. I was listening to Kamalamukhi's leading kirtan, and that was the first time I think I ever heard her lead kirtan. So what if she decides, I'll just do kirtan. All the devotees appreciate it. I won't do japa. Well, first of all, she and I would probably have a big fight. But let me explain. You see, in bhakti, on the spiritual platform, everything is absolute. Absolute means spiritually equal. There's really no higher or lower. Looked at one way, kirtan is the best. Looked at another way, japa is the best. So the acharyas say, they point out different angles. It's like taking a gem and turning it into light. This aspect, this facet of the gem looks better. Then you turn the gem. Well, actually, this aspect, this facet of the gem is just as sweet. So, let's talk about kirtan, why kirtan can be superlative. First of all, there's music. Music is not the most important thing in kirtan, the musical accompaniment. The most important thing is the sincerity of the heart. Still, musical arrangement can help process the emotional connection. And yoga is all about connection. So, the purpose of the music in the kirtan, the harmonium and etc., the other instruments, is not to detract from the sincerity of the heart. Actually, expert kirtaniyas, musicians, know how to play their instrument in such a way to augment or to supplement the sincerity of the chanting. And that's why in classical Indian music, which we don't do, in classical Indian music, raga is so important. Particular styles, motifs of the music are so important. They're all handed down over millennia as being precise for evoking certain emotions. And rhythm is also important. So when you have the melody and the rhythm together as the background for the kirtan, it helps the yogic connection. But remember, the purpose of the musical instrumentation is to help the yogic connection. Yoga means connection, as you all know, and bhakti is the ultimate connection, how to connect with Krishna through pure love. So this is why kirtan can be superlative, a superlative process of hearing and chanting, because the music helps you to process emotions and connect the emotions. Where was I? I can't remember. Probably, if I can't remember, it means I was at an airport somewhere. Because all the airports just merge into one blur. So I was probably at an Air New Zealand lounge at the airport, and I noticed how whenever the corniest Christmas songs would come on their music system, the staff and people would just start singing along just blindly. About the little drummer boy or rumpa-tum-tum or something like that. And everyone would just kind of unconsciously just kind of start singing other songs. And it's just unconscious, you know. They're just humming the melody or just singing the words from time to time as they're going about their duties. So that's what music can do. Of course, music can be used to drag down your consciousness, and in kirtan, the music should be supplementary to the sincerity of the chanting so that your consciousness is uplifted. So that's one reason why kirtan is superlative. It helps, the musicality helps the yogic connection to Krishna. Second reason is that it's a shared activity, a communal activity. Usually we're locked up in our own minds, right? In our own little mental world. Self-centered, egocentric, I, me, and mine. How am I feeling today? How am I not feeling today? How come others are more happy than me? How come others have a better partner than mine? Oh, you're always measuring and calculating. But when you engage in kirtan, it's a shared communal bliss beyond the isolated self-centeredness. So we saw how Archita Prabhu stood up and the men were dancing, and then the ladies decided, nothing, we can outdo them. And in case you don't know, New Zealand has been rated by the UN as the #1 female power country in the world.
I think I see.
So they wanted to make sure you knew that. Just for comparison's sake, Sweden is #2. So the shared communal bliss of chanting together is unforgettable. And then #3, you see, begging for divine grace is so important in bhakti. So when you're having kirtan together, it's like a group begging. Oh, Krishna, please give us your mercy. And when I try to give class, I'll speak more about the various levels of chanting. I've mentioned it slightly before, and to some of our older devotees, I've given some information. But that group petitioning for Krishna's mercy, the prasad, is what is so unforgettable. Everyone is dancing, chanting, and please don't dance without chanting, crying out, petitioning, begging, please let me engage in Krishna's service. So that's the third reason. But what about japa? Japa is the best because, we already said kirtan's the best. Japa is the best when looked at from another angle because it's more self-sufficient. For chanting japa, you don't need anyone else around. You certainly don't need a harmonium or a mridanga. You just don't need a microphone. You just need you and your beads. That's all. So japa is more independent and can more likely fulfill Lord Chaitanya's instruction of kirtaniya sada hari, always chant Hare Krishna. You can't have Kamalamukhi sitting here and Damodar Krishna on mridanga and others on cartels 24/7, day after day after day after day after day after day after day. But you always have your beads with you. So japa is superlative because it's more self-sufficient. Other living entities are not required. Also, japa is superlative because yoga, any genuine yoga system is about strengthening the mind and controlling the mind. And of course, what does Krishna say about that in Bhagavad Gita? Yoginam api sarvesham madgaten antaratmana shraddhavam bhajate yomam same yukta tamomata. Of all the different types of yogis, the one who's always thinking of Krishna, engaged in Krishna's service, that's the best. Manmana bhava mad bhakto majaji mam namaskuru. Always think of me, become my devotee. Offer your worship to me. Offer your obeisances to me. Surely you'll come to me. I promise you this. So, when we speak of strengthening the mind and controlling the mind, bhakti is the best and the culmination of that effort. When you're chanting japa, you know how embarrassed you become when you see how wild your mind is. Sometimes you think this is hopeless. It is not hopeless. You become more and more committed to focusing the mind on Krishna's name. And that focus, atat Sri Krishna namadi, nabhavekayam indra, that focus on Krishna's name gradually brings to you the form, the qualities, the pastimes, all from Krishna's names. That's why we say, Sevan Mukhi Jivadao. Devotional service begins with the tongue. And this festival is a maximizer of using the tongue in Krishna's service. They'll be vibrating with the tongue, and they'll be tasting with the tongue. And in this way, the form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna become more and more dear to you as a result of your effort to hear your chanting, to hear your japa. So you'll hear much more about that from Archita Prabhu. But I just wanted to explain these various aspects of kirtan, so-called versus japa. Finally, japa gives you a sense of just being alone with Krishna. When your japa is very good, meaning somehow or other you've attracted Krishna's mercy through your chanting, you feel I'm with Krishna, it's just me and Krishna. Because Krishna's name is the same as Krishna's presence. And sometimes you get a glimpse of that. So this is why we do both kirtan and japa. You have the superlativeness of japa, and you have the superlativeness of kirtan. So would you like to share a few words? Or?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Yes, if time permits, I could say a couple of things on both aspects. I lived in the Potomac Temple. Some people say it's the Washington, D.C. temple, but it's actually about an hour away from D.C. Potomac, Maryland Temple. And they have a quote on the wall there from Bhaktisiddhanta, Saraswati Thakur. It says that, in the beginning, it's very difficult to get a taste for japa. Therefore, one must surrender to kirtan. If you surrender to the kirtan, the taste for japa will increase automatically. So we should take that seriously. And as Maharaj said, don't dance without chanting. Both have to go together. Notably, he thanked the kirtan leader. What's her name?
Kamalamukhi.
Kamalamukhi. Very nice chanting, but he didn't say anything about the mridanga player. What is her name? Damodar Krishnadas. I just read a quote from Prabhupada where he said, the mridanga is meant to make you dance. Now, the first time I went to the Mayapur Festival was 1976. We actually chartered an entire plane, 747 from Air India, and more than 400 devotees from America flew to India. Talk about chanting and dancing. Just after we took off on the flight, we decided, why don't we have Mangal Arti? So we did it. And you can imagine, 400 plus devotees chanting and dancing on an airplane. So the pilot said, sit down. You can't dance on an airplane. So we were conditioned to chanting and dancing. So yes, the two have to go together. But it should not be like a musical performance or a dance contest. So I mentioned that particular visit to Mayapur, my first. On that trip, I also got my second initiation from Prabhupada in his quarters there. But the notable thing related to kirtan is that prior to that, every year they would have like a kirtan mela competition type thing, where they would bring devotee chanters from all over India, Bangladesh, different places, come together and perform at the Mayapur Festival. And then they would give prizes for the best performance. So on that particular year, Prabhupada told them, stop, don't do this anymore. It's not meant to be a competition, a performance. He said, when we chant in public, the public should be left not with an impression of how good musicians we are, but with an impression of devotion to Krishna. So that devotion has to come from each individual. I can't gauge your devotion, or you can't gauge mine, or test, or no. Everybody has to come to the kirtan with that intention to increase my devotion to Krishna, my attachment to the holy name, which is non-different from Krishna, as Maharaj reminded us. But at the same time, we have to know where we are, and you can't artificially be a Paramahamsa. So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his Madhurya Kadambini, he points out that the taste for chanting, especially in kirtan, it gradually changes. In the beginning, everything has to be perfect. It has to be the right kirtan leader and the right melody. If you have the right leader, but he's not chanting the right melody that you like, or like everything has to be perfect, and then you can get into it. But as you mature in your chanting, it doesn't matter who's leading or what the melody is. As soon as you hear Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, you just get into it. You get drawn into it because Krishna is all attractive. So his name is also all attractive. And that, as Prabhupada said in that pamphlet, Krishna, that name is transcendental. So we may not understand what's happening to us. Why, how, we just allow yourself to be drawn in, because there's nothing higher than being connected to the Supreme through the chanting of his holy name. So tomorrow's class, I selected a verse from the 4th chapter of the Antya Lila, which just specifically speaks about the chanting of Hare Krishna. So we'll say some more then. Hare Krishna.
All right. Shall we continue with kirtan?